Welcome to Keep the Faith. We've a special guest here this week, episode 4, Mr. McGrath, my old buddy of 24 years now. He's in Delasad 25 years, and it's great to have him here. Hopefully, he might enlighten us with some of his experiences over the years, good and bad. Plenty of good and bad experience, which is what life is all about. It's not all roses, it's all tough going and struggling and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I suppose, with a lot of lads and the guests we had so far. So, we're welcome, Mr. McGrath.
Thanks, Darren. Thanks for having me.
First of all, I'd like to say your son graduated last night. A very proud moment. Fionn went through the school there, 6 years of ups and downs as well, and hardship and studying, and doing big interviews recently. And he has an ambition to do well, like every student. But what was the emotions at the grad mass last night?
Yeah, it was kind of tough. Not tough, but I suppose very emotional. Like, when a child of your own goes through the school gates, and I suppose my affiliation with the school no different than lots of the past pupils are based on having a father or having someone belong to you that went to the school. And obviously I went to the school myself, so I view the school as a very special place. So to watch him go through the gates, I suppose, and to get the balance right between, as a teacher, being up in his face and being away from him, if you like, is a hard balance in that. I had him for the first 3 years as his English teacher, and
How was that? Was it good or bad?
I don't know. I really don't know now, and that's not. We have a great relationship now. I don't want to perceive it as being anything different, but in retrospect, I might have given him that bit more distance if I had the time back, if you like. But that's that's probably that's a personal decision, I suppose. He had a great class, and he had great friends and great classmates in that particular class. So you feel the duty to kind of look after him, but not be one of those kind of pushy parents that's making sure that everything is done for him, I suppose. You probably went the opposite route, making it hard on him more than anything. So so it was a very proud night. Like, he was, he's a good group of friends, and he's graduated from the school, and he's had a good mix in terms of, like, he's played a bit of hurling, he's been involved in music, he's worked hard, I think, over the 5 or 6 years, and as I said, they've a good group of friends. So they went out for a while last night. So getting them home last night was probably the hardest thing, but not the hardest thing, but so I suppose they're entitled to a few nights out to kind of celebrate their graduation.
Well, they do succeed, because I think to say your friends are reference would just tell you that you succeeded, because he has great friends. They're all solid, down to earth fellas, So he did achieve that after your 6 years. So now he goes to college now, so leave him off. Leave him off now.
And that's it's a worry, I suppose, like, in terms of just that's just the same worries that every parent have, that in terms of when a child leaves primary school to go to secondary. They're wondering, will they settle in here with ourselves? They're worried about their their friend group and who they'll be mixing with, and will they get a chance to play sports, or will they get a holistic education? With something that we probably kind of thrive on here, in terms of just trying to look after them as best we can.
You mentioned hurling, we have a great involvement in school hurling, and was our best years were 07, 08. We won the All Ireland in the Hearties. And one of the things, this show came from Derek McGrath, the name Keep the Faith. What do we have? Believe, was it?
We did. We wrote it up there in 3 years before the Hearty in 07. I suppose we wrote it up in 04. That. I suppose the visual that guys can see reinforce the whole, reinforce the word, I suppose, no different than the faith, I suppose, in that you're kind of practicing looking at something all the time. It becomes almost embedded in your ways then, you're looking at what's in front of you. And look, some people see it and perceive it as a bit gimmicky or corny when you put something. It's like you often see the modern player now. He might have a trigger on his hand, he might have something written on his wrist, or he might, fellas engage in psychological kind of triggers to reset themselves, if you like. So we were probably, I won't say we were ahead of the game, but we were probably looking at things we could do to kind of, and we knew there was a group coming, didn't we? In terms of, we knew there was a lads coming that were kind of, we probably segued them into transition here as well, probably, to make sure they have the extra year
trying to do this
in school, so so that was probably a bit of manipulation on our behalf, but all the lads did well, and they were great lads too, as you know, in terms of even their own faith and their ways, I suppose they were great.
I remember we were up one night in Ulster, in Cushendall, and Thomas Connors was there now. Thomas is a teacher now in St. Paul's, but he he had the rosary beads out. You know, I thought it was fantastic. He was saying his prayers before going to bed. You know, we're having a good time up on cushioned all as well. But he didn't forget to say his prayers. So I'm going to come back to now, based on the whole, not changing the direction, but there's a guy, a lecturer. He's an Indian lecturer, and he was asked a question about worship. You know, and I agree with you on this. Worship. He said worship isn't going to mass and closing your eyes and I'm the best. I'm doing the most prayers. You know. And I say I agree in that because I know you like to do it. Actions speak louder than words. But his thing is worship is avoiding. He said avoiding the things that make you fall. If you do that, avoid the things that that trigger. So if you're a gambler, don't have the petty hour up on your phone because that'll cause you to fall. Or if you're a drinker, avoid the stag. Or if you're a drug addict or you like your cocaine, which is very common in Ireland now. Don't go on that stag because it's going to be everywhere. So that's what he said. That's real worship. Avoiding the stuff that's going to make you fall. So what was your thoughts on that whole thing in life?
Yeah, no, look, that's probably me in a nutshell in terms of not the addictions, but you know, I think I've described myself before as being a hypocritical Catholic in that I probably pray when I want something. Like I'm kind of selfish at times, you know. And I kind of, you know, I if someone was sick in the family now, or say Fiona's coming up to his exams, you dedicate a certain period of your life to kind of praying hard for his exam results, or not even his results, but even the fact that the paper will go well for him, or if you had a big match over the years, you kind of say a few prayers. I used to go into kind of St. Anthony on the right hand side in the cathedral and light a few candles before big matches, and I'd go up to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and I'd say you said asking you shall receive, seeking you shall find. I always seem to be seeking rather than, you know, kind of, and I'd say it to God, I suppose. I'd probably talk to him and say, look, I'll go back to the routine of mass. Like, I know you've made the point about worship and that, but you know, and he, even when my father was dying there, my parents are very devout. Like, you know, my late father, very devout, would have been in Mount Sion Church. I'd say every day of his life for the last 20 years would pop in for 5 minutes and say a prayer in the Edmund Rice. And my mum would be obviously a very devout Catholic and you know, loves the church and loves praying and prays for us all and is a real giver. But so the example is there for me. Did I follow the example? I do. I suppose in the best I can do in terms of a balance. No, I can do better. The best I can do is not good enough out of me. But I don't routinely go to mass. You know, I'd be envious even of. I know your example. You know, I see Sunday morning. You know, in fairness, like you'd go with the family and you know you kind of have them indoctrined in the way of Christ, if you like, of the Lord. And I kind of say to myself, why don't I do that? But you know, I find excuses, I suppose. But I think that's a constant battle that everyone has. You know, you talked about addictions, even, you know, without the hurling at the top level with Waterford, you kind of nearly struggle a bit sometimes. You know, you become a bit envious of not being involved almost. You know, sometimes, you know, you kind of get, you kind of look at the team even a year or two away from it. You kind of, you're nearly at matches kind of like wishing you were involved, even though you chose to be not involved yourself. You know, so, but I think that's a lot to do with immersion. You throw yourself into something, and but look, I think some weeks ago, you had the priests in here, you know, in terms of confession. You remember we were outside this room here.
I told him to go in.
We were outside the room here on the seafloor, and Mr. Dooley said to me, why don't you go in and get confession, Mac? You know, go in for yourself. You know, he wasn't forcing me or cajoling me, I suppose, and he was kind of so. I went in, you know, and I said, the priest said to me, how long has it been since your last confession? And I said, it's been 22 years since my last confession. And he kind of looked at me, you know, as if I might need a bit of time here with you. Like, you know? So, but when I was in there, I was very, not proud, I suppose, but I was very confessional. You know, you might go into confession over the years, and you might say
hiding stuff.
Yeah, you might say kind of, you know, I spoke ill of my parents, or I used bad language. You know, the constant routine stuff that you might trot out in 5th or 6th class. You know, but I went in there and I just went for it. You know, and I felt kind of. I don't say I felt cleansed, but I felt good after. But I think it's I'd be envious of your faith, I suppose. I'd be envious that, you know, I've heard your radio interview talking even about Dara and talking about the difficulties, you know, not the difficulties, but the journey, I suppose, that you've been on with him and been able to say you've leaned on your faith, whereas I've probably leaned on my parents and you know, your kind of example. but I do turn to God in different ways, even through the brothers here. You know, Brother Tommy is a great friend of ours. True example. You know, again, the matches, I'd often went to the prayer room in De La Salle College here on the seafloor. Yeah. And I would have picked up that St. Joseph Apostle and read, like,
we did a year
prostrate myself before you. You know, a heavy burden. And that's not to say you can't deal with the pressure, but you kind of, you're looking for help.
I think you're being hard on yourself. I consider myself a hypocrite. I think everyone's in the church is a hypocrite. I think everyone, that's why it's full of hypocrites, because that's why we're not going to reach that level. We have to try and get up to Jesus, but no one's getting there. There's no one getting there. So the whole message is you going to confession saying I'm not good enough, and that's when Jesus gives his mercy. That's the whole message that Jesus is offering us. And you're dead right. Acknowledging that you're a hypocrite is 100% you're on the right road, and I'm a hypocrite. But based on Dara, I think I was whatever way we're going in life. It was 2008. We're flying. Hardy Cup, Dean Ryan, All Ireland. We never won as much in the school ever. Next year, Dara's born. Boom. Life upside down. But it's the best thing ever. Even though 2008 was, we're celebrating and there's Granville Awards, Park, the next year Dara was born. That was, I think, not just making this about me now. No. That's when I kind of, my eyes were open and said, right, there's more to life than this. And he, like I said to you today, you get him up in the mornings and he's a gift. He's after sorting me out regards. Get me focused, what's important and what's not. Now look, we do slip, we make mistakes, and that's what the church is built on. We're all hypocrites, and what you're doing is you're a perfect Catholic. You're admitting. And
I find sometimes even on that, like you're even with my own relationship with the boys, like I leave obviously there's an 8-year gap between my 10-year-old and an 18-year-old, but I find I'm quite harsh on Fionn, I just kind of I suppose I'm kind of. I won't say on his back now, but I'd be kind of, I don't know how to explain it properly, but kind of, sometimes I wouldn't be proud of how I'd speak to him, sometimes I'd be kind of, in school, I'd be, very, very approachable and affable, and, and then when I go home, I might bite at him, and I kind of do kind of pray, I suppose, consistently to be kind of better with him, even though, as I said, we have an absolutely brilliant relationship, but I suppose, we're probably the same in ways, we're kind of probably
same mentality
probably in different ways. So we probably, we don't clash, but we kind of, I just want him to succeed for himself, not for myself. Just kind of, when a fella works hard, like the boys in the hurling team here, you'd like to see him get some reward for putting everything into it. And that's probably the constant battle between assessing what's winning or what's success. Even with faith, like what is success,
But sure, like you're based on if you're saying something like there's someone and you feel bad about it, if you don't feel bad about what you did or something wrong, if there's immediate remorse, I should have said that. That's a good thing. And already you're on the way to reconciling. You're saying, and then you go back to Fionn. Sorry, Fionn. It's be hard to say.
Yeah. And I do that, like, and I'm very,
we all do it.
Very proud of him, like, and I have kept my say even the night of the awards now.
Yeah.
He got the Principal's Award, and I wasn't up here now. Yeah. I was up at a hurling match under 10 with Owen.
Yeah.
But I kind of, I suppose, I've just the distance is out of respect for him as much as anything else, because I'm a teacher here. The first thing he'll be thinking perhaps is, I got that award because I have a son teaching, or I have a father teaching in the so I just kind of, I do have a reason for stepping away.
I know,
even though there comes a time where you need to kind of there supportive of them, and that's important too. And I'd be more probably supportive of the small fella in terms of being seen, I suppose, visually. Not that
different kids need different things.
Exactly.
If you only need space.
Exactly.
Owen is mad for your attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Dad, see the goal I got.
Yeah. And he'll come back with the stories from what he did and what he didn't do. They're playing Ballygunner today, actually, in the schools, like, and he will have, the reasons why they won or didn't win, and he'll have all the things that he did. He'll have it all. Like, he'll analyse it down to a T. So it's it is interesting. And look, I said that to you before. I've my parents, as I said, are very devout. They pray for us, and they work consistently hard for us. And I suppose that's what we're trying to do for our kids now, and even the kids in school here. Yeah. And we've great example in terms of their brothers here as well.
Absolutely.
How they work,
Now, to finish up, one last question, Mr. McGrath. This program was really kind of for ex-students as well. Like, they might latch on to this. And is there any message like to give lads? Because I think when they leave our school, as you say, Fionn's going off now, and they're kind of a bit they're at their own, you know, they have to deal with things themselves. There's no teacher, they can't go to Miss Murphy or Miss Martin or the principal or the year head for advice. They're gone. They're on their own. So any advice for fellas that are in their mid-20s, 30s, maybe kind of gone down the wrong rabbit hole and they're looking for maybe, you know, how do you get out of it? How would you advise young fellas maybe that have maybe fallen a bit to the wayside? And they're good guys, but just might be lost. You know, because the suicide rates go up after 20, you know, 30s. You know, I think to 35 even is very high. What would you say to lads? Any?
Well, I'm just trying to think out loud now in my mind of students that left here and are probably a bit lost and I don't know. I'm looking at the whole area of connection. I'm thinking in perspective, thinking in terms of what's important. You know, I think the realization that without being too kind of gimmicky, that someone is always kind of struggling. You know, whether it's through mental health issues or you know, struggling in general. You know, the realization that people do struggle. You know, I listen to the best managers in Ireland. I read Jimmy McGuinness's book, and I read I listened to Jim Gavin and watching other managers, and insecurity is a big part of most people's lives. You know, and even listening to Klopp, albeit I'm an Evertonian, but I was listening to Klopp there at the weekend and looking back at interviews with Klopp, and massive insecurity there. You know, massive kind of doubt, massive fear.
Yeah.
And all these things are traits that are in people that are highly successful, I think. You know, and people don't realise that. So when I hear of people falling by the wayside and they kind of say, I'm not right, I'm on a slippery slope, I'm in a bad place. I think they don't realise that good people, not good people, but because they're all good people, but maybe the perceived successful people had massive doubts in their career, massive insecurities. Like Jackie Tyrrell, for instance, the Kilkenny hurler who went on and won 8 county or senior All-Irelands, and if you read his book, he'd speak about just completely being insecure around his appearance, around his weight, around just when he was starting off the whole journey, that he was just completely, you know. So when people see that persona on the sideline and they think they're confident or they think they're you know, completely, you know, they're in control of everything, there's no problems, I can tell you they're not. And you know, so I think that's one thing. If a 25-year-old that's a bit lost realises that, hang on, these people and then I think the one good adult theory is very good. Someone to confide in, someone to kind of be able to, not outside your parents, maybe a teacher, without, I don't want to be using, you know, bad language, but without bigging you up too much. You know, there's been children in our school that have come to you over the years for advice, for help, for guidance, for support, that you know, that you've probably saved their lives without being too over, you know, the top about it. And that's the truth, because you've been able to kind of say to them, listen, we can help you, like, how can we help you? And I think there's help there, I suppose. So perspective thinking, what's important. You know, there's always someone in a similar position or in a worse position. And there's always someone in a worse position. So how many times have you gone out for a big match over the years and you're getting a bit nervous and your parents might have said to you, hey, you know, look what's going on in Israel, look what's going on in, even just trying to think about nowadays, like, you know, where you kind of, and that kind of almost frees your mind to be able to kind of attack the day a bit, you know, a bit more kind of, you know, a bit more forceful kind of nature, I feel like. So that's probably the general advice, you know, that people are very insecure, you know, and that doesn't mean you lack confidence then. So sometimes people think that if you're ambitious and you care for others, that they're totally two different things. Like, so how do people succeed? They're ambitious. They want to get on the Tony Forster team, or they want to get on the Arabon or the development squad or the minor team. We were talking to Mark Hartley down on the corridor, and they're this morning, and they're heading off playing Galway, I think, on Saturday. You know, and there's going to be nerves in the Hartley household ahead of that. There'll be kind of anxiety, but there'll be excitement as well. So the balance between adrenaline and nervousness, and then coming into school on a Monday morning, and you know, you don't go well, say. You know, so that's where I think it actually comes back to faith, being strong enough to kind of, geez, I gave that absolutely everything. I didn't go well, I met a better opponent, but next time I'll go a different way about it, you know. And I thought Mr. Manny used to be brilliant for that, with Waterford, that, you know, kind of, the programme's title is Keep the Faith, where you persevere. We're from Waterford, like, we haven't won it since 1959, you know, so we have to keep the faith, you know, in terms of, you know, the faith has another meaning as well, you know, in terms of just being able to persevere year after year. You know, why would you do it? Like, you know, why would you do it otherwise? Mr. Moore and Mr. Mann, they all played for 10, 12 years of their life, 15 years.
Yeah.
Are they losers because they didn't get an All-Ireland in their hand? Of course they're not, you know, and that's the reality of they emptied themselves. Same with the Brick Walshes of the world.
Yeah, I was up in Offaly last night now, we would win now, and they're few and far between up in Offaly. And Leo Connor's after, you know, he's on with, you know, it's encouraging all the next generation. It's just a little spark. Waterford get one, it could be Limerick this weekend, could ignite the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, something like that now, I'm not saying we all pray for it, but look, it happens, if it does, it'll be like combustible, it'll blow, and the whole place will open up.
Yeah. And I see there's a great line in Les Mis, the musical, where it says, see, basically it's about having second chances in life.
Yeah.
And he's out on parole, Valjean is out on parole, and the bishop takes him in overnight and he feeds him, and he's, you know, and then during the night then he's tempted to steal the silver, and he steals the silver and he puts it in the bag, you know, and he's rearrested and he's brought in front of the bishop. Yeah. And he was after telling the guards that the bishop gave him the silver, but the bishop says to him, that's true, he said, I forgot to give you this one, this silver as well. And then he says to him, seeing this some higher plan, you know, you must use this precious silver to become an honest man. So he gets I think we've all got a kind of a scare moment, an epiphany moment, where you get kind of, Jesus, I have to.
Better not do that again.
I'm not going to do that again. You know?
I think that's the big thing. Yeah.
And I think that's the start process, even for being a bit more.
Yeah. So God presents things. It could be a bad thing at the moment, but then the journey turns into, it can make sense now. You know, it makes sense. I remember my HDIP year, 1999. Before I got the job in LSL, I wasn't going too great. I didn't like it. I didn't like Maynooth. I was on my own up there. A lunatic from Clare, and he was off the walls. But he was a good crack, but too much crack, too much fun, and I wasn't going well. But then I got an interview with Brother Damien. I didn't know anything about LSL. Just fell into my lap. So I always felt God was pushing me into something. Yeah. That's why it might sound, as you say, corny, but it just the way things worked out. And next thing, the brothers are asking me to do chaplaincy. Then the brothers want me to go to America to do the. The brothers, I owe a lot to the brothers though.
And look, similar here, I left St. Saviour's National School in 89. I'd say I was one of two students that came in here in first year in 89 from St. Saviour's. All my school went to the St. Paul's, and obviously my father had a kind of an eye on the hurling, he was kind of saying, go into De La Salle, blah blah blah. But when I came in here then, I was employed in the summers by the brothers. I was painting here for the summers 91, 92, 93. And Still here. And but even when I was doing the HDIP, the brothers got me to De La Salle School in UCD in Stillorgan, and then, to be honest with you, when I was doing the HDIP, I had to, I got a job back here then in De La Salle, so I'm
that's the way to do
institutionalised, I suppose. The old-fashioned pull probably existed, not pull, but, you kind of identify someone perhaps that can, help you out along the way, and they've been brilliant to me. And obviously, Brother Tommy was groomsman for my own wedding, so they've been a huge influence on your outlook. I suppose.
The journey.
That's the journey, exactly.
So as we say in De La Salle, we'll wrap it up and Saint John Baptiste De La Salle.
Pray for us.
Live Jesus and Hearts
forever.
Thanks very much, Mr. McGrath.
Thanks a million, lads. Thank you.